everybody, welcome to the Teaching Kitchen. My name is John Zagrich. I'm actually Director of Marketing Communications for BSU Dining, and we're here doing a great class for you when it comes to the Office of Alumni. Really excited to be working with you. I want to introduce my help for today.
Hi, Chef Austin Roselle. I'm the sous chef here that runs the Oaks All-You-Care-to-Eat Dining Hall.
So today we're going to do something a little bit more fun, which we're going to be doing a really cool snack mix that Chef put together, and also we're going to be doing a cocktail that pairs really well with some of the flavors that Chef put together. So Chef, kind of go through, what are we doing for this snack mix?
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're doing just kind of a smoky snack mix is what we're going for. Something that's got a little bit of a subtle heat to it, nothing too crazy, but we kind of go for something a lot more savory than your typical just salt. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to get a lot more flavors in there, and it's really easy, and the thing that's really nice about this snack mix is, one, it's easy because it's literally just dump a bunch of stuff in a bowl, mix it together, throw it in the oven, but the other thing is it's extremely customizable. So for example, today what we've got, I've got some rice cereal, some cashews, some corn snacks, some pretzels, some cheese crackers, and I have two different kinds of peanuts here, John. I've got a dry roasted peanut, and then I've also got a honey seasoned peanut here as well. So this is going to kind of add a little bit of a sweetness factor as well, but we don't want something super overpowering, so that's why I'm kind of doing a half and half here.
Gotcha.
And the other thing to note is as we go through, you'll notice that I don't use any salt. And the reason I don't is because you have to think about what you're putting into your mix. So for example, our pretzels will be salty, our cheese crackers will be salty, and the corn snacks will also be salty.
Okay.
So the nuts themselves are just a dry roasted nut. There's no salt on those. So obviously this is something that can be tweaked. So if maybe you don't use the pretzels or you use something else, you can maybe add some salt in there.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
So that's going to be our snack kind of choices that we're using today. And then our seasoning mixes are going to be, we've got 4 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter, again, unsalted. We've got 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, 2 teaspoons of liquid smoke. And this one you kind of got to be careful with because it's a very intense flavor. So it's definitely one of those less is more.
Yeah, I've played with that before and
Yes.
gotten burnt real bad.
Yes, it is very potent stuff. So, and then I've got 1 teaspoon of onion powder. I've got 1 tablespoon of smoked paprika. I've got 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and then I've got 1 tablespoon of ancho chipotle chili powder. And again, the ancho there is it's going to add that smokiness.
Oh, okay.
So
what would be the non-smoky version instead of ancho? Would that just be chili powder?
Yeah, so it's
okay.
essentially it's just like a normal chili powder that you would buy to use for chili, or some means of like various Hispanic cuisines. But the difference is that this one is made with a chipotle pepper rather than just another variety of chilies. So it kind of has that smokiness mixed in there.
Okay.
Because
cool.
what a lot of people don't know is a chipotle is actually a jalapeno that has been cured by being smoked. So
I didn't know that.
Yes. All right. So really, like I said, all we're going to do, we're just going to take all of our dry snack mixes here and dump them into this bowl.
So when it comes to the corn, if you don't like the corn nuts, the corn mix sort of thing, what would you go for instead? If you were thinking more of like that that snack mix, I always think of like the bagel chips, or the rye chips. Okay.
Yes, and that was actually one of those where when I was kind of going through looking for the ingredients to kind of piece this together, I actually was one of those things I was looking for because I am also a big fan of rye chips. And I'm typically the guy that'll go through and like pick through and just eat the rye chips out,
okay. Well, I know they come with those with just those in the bags now, which I've gotten personally.
Yes, and it's awesome. But yeah, I mean, I think rye chips are always a great one that you can add in there. But really, it's just personal preference, John. Like, you could even go through and instead of using just the rice cereal, you could even go so far as to, if you wanted to do something a little different, you could use they have a lot of different, almost like chocolate coated ones. That you can use. There's really no limits as to what you want to do. It's really just kind of about your personal preference and more of what you're kind of planning on putting it with.
Gotcha.
So right now, like I said, since we're going to have this cocktail here, we wanted to go something that's going to be a little bit more savory, and it's going to kind of work well with that cocktail rather than something that's going to be overly sweet.
Gotcha.
All right. Something that you can kind of eat as you go on. So, all right. So all I did was I just took all of our seasonings and mixed them in with our melted butter.
So this is the part that I'm always terrible at, because I've tried to do snack mix and those sort of things before, and I always mess up the ratio when it comes to liquid to dry.
Yeah.
Is there a good cheat for it, or is it really just?
Well, see, the thing is really the only purpose of the liquid, so obviously the butter that we're using in this recipe, the sole purpose of this butter is just to help us get those seasonings onto our dry ingredients.
Got it.
So really, it's one of those where, depending on, like, if you look online, you can find a ton of recipes that have all sorts of different measurements on them.
Yeah.
I just went with that 4 tablespoons. One, because you don't really need a lot of butter in there. You can find recipes that call for like a whole stick.
See,
or even
that's
more
what I've
than
run
that.
into before.
No,
and
it's
they just never turned out.
Exactly, and because the thing is like I said, John, it's really the whole purpose of that butter is just so that we can get it coated onto our snacks here, and because what we're gonna do is I just threw them all together in the bowl. I'm just using my hands. I have gloves on my hands, but obviously you can use, a spoon or a spatula, whatever. And you really want to just gently kind of toss it all together, kind of go from the bottom and come up, so that all that, the liquid that kind of settles in the bottom, you get it mixed in there. But really, the only point of that butter is really just to kind of help keep things coated.
Yeah.
And another thing too is, since I used less butter, we can that kind of gave us that wiggle room to use that Worcestershire sauce in that liquid smoke, so that it wasn't too wet.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and then now that we've got this all mixed together, I have got a baking sheet, and I don't know about you, but I personally don't like having to scrub dishes. So
yes.
yeah. So I cheated with this one, and I used nonstick cooking spray as well as parchment paper.
Ooh, okay, so I've never done that. That makes sense.
Yeah, well, see, so the reason I do it is for 2 things. The first thing I do is I actually take the plain, just the normal tray, and I will spray it with nonstick spray. And what that does is that actually makes it so that your parchment doesn't shuffle around. It kind of holds it on there.
Okay.
So I do 1 light layer on that, and I put my parchment on, and then I hit it on top of the parchment, more of just kind of an insurance policy. That's really all it is.
So if you don't have parchment paper at home, could you use aluminum foil?
You definitely could do aluminum foil. There's really
will
no
it change?
difference.
Okay, that's
no,
what...
there's really not a big difference. The one thing that you might experience with the aluminum foil is it might kind of put a little bit too much heat on here, but really it's not going to go in the oven long enough to where it should matter.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense.
Again, the big thing is if you do use aluminum foil, you do just want to make sure you give it that spray.
Yeah.
With the parchment, it's not as necessary, but with the aluminum foil, you'll definitely want to use it.
Gotcha.
So, and then all we're going to do is we're just going to spread this into 1 nice even layer. Try to make it so it's not too stacked on top of itself. And then all we're going to do, John, is I'm going to take this, I'm going to throw it in the oven and bake it at 300 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then about halfway through, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up the oven, pull it out, mix it up a little bit, and then make sure that kind of everything is cooking evenly. Go back in for the other half of our time.
Cool.
Really, the only point that we're doing here now is we're just trying to take that butter and the moisture that's in there and just kind of evaporate that off. And then re-crisp our snacks back up, since they have all that liquid in there. All right?
Cool.
So I'm going to throw this in the oven, and then, John, you've got a cocktail you're going to make for us,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. We're going to get a cocktail going and get ready to go.
All right.
All right, welcome back. So we're going to do what's called an autumn Ricky. Now, Chef, I know we've talked before when it comes to cocktails. Cocktails aren't as much your thing.
No.
What do you like about cocktails when you do get them?
I mean, for me, I like... Cocktails to me are just like food in the sense of it's all about kind of building those flavor profiles, and you kind of get to pick up on like those subtle aspects of it. You know what I mean? It's a lot nicer than just your typical rum and Coke. You know what I mean? It's nice because there's a lot more variety to it. There's flavors to it. There's layers, and it's more of a craft. You know what I'm saying? I really enjoy that.
So I think that's why you like this cocktail. So it's called an autumn Ricky. It's very subtle, which will go well with the smokiness that we already did when it came to your snack mix.
Right.
So what's in this cocktail? We actually have maple syrup. This is actually a bourbon barrel maple syrup that our dietitian Paige found for me, so it's really good in this cocktail.
Awesome.
We have Knob Creek. One of the reasons why I chose Knob Creek is it actually has a higher proof. So when it comes to cocktails, the higher proof, some people like that, some people don't. My personal preference is I think it will go well with also this maple. We've got lime juice, and honestly, that's it. So it's a really simple cocktail. One of my biggest complaint is a strong word. When my wife and I were first starting to get into cocktails, we went to the store and bought bottle of this, bottle of this, bottle of this, bottle of all this stuff, didn't use any of it. Like we went down to, I think Luke Karasak was the one that made it the trip from our very first apartment to our house, and we finally got to our house, and that was 6 years later.
Wow.
We finally dumped it. We're like, but
there's
we're
no
not doing this. So, cool thing about this drink, it's also super easy when it comes to the amounts. So, it's 1 ounce lime juice, fresh lime juice. If you have the lime juice, you can talk about this because I know we've talked about. What is it about the lime juice that you get in the little plastic lime things that you want to be careful about?
So the thing that you'll typically run into is the stuff that you buy, like in the fancy little green container, or just bottled lime juice and lemon juice, is they're typically far more bitter than a fresh product.
Yep.
And the reason behind that is there's usually some means of like an additive to it to extend that shelf life. Because you'll notice a lot of times when you find those products, they're sitting just on the shelf. They're not refrigerated. Whereas your limes and things like that, if I were to cut this and let it sit on the counter, it would go bad. So that's one thing, is there's usually some additives in there. They're usually very bitter, and they're just, if you were to compare them one to one, trying to drink them side by side, it is an extremely noticeable difference.
For sure.
They don't have that nice brightness to them like a fresh product would.
Yeah, I would totally agree, because I know that's one of the things with this one is I've ruined a drink before because I was like, oh, I'll just put, no,
Yeah.
you can taste it as soon as you do.
Yes.
So for this one, it's 1 ounce maple syrup,
Okay.
1 ounce lime,
Okay.
and then 1.5 ounces when it comes to whatever your drink is. Like I said, I chose not free. If you don't know, this is what's called a jigger. You can use a shot glass if you want. Always be careful. These are not all created equal.
Right.
So some have a 1/2 ounce when it comes to the smaller, and there's 2 ounce, some is 1 ounce and 1.5 ounces. Always make sure you double check before you start a cocktail, because you may make a cocktail and find out, oh, why does this taste so bad?
Yeah, right.
And it's just because you aren't paying attention to this. So this is something that's really important. So we're also going to add in 1.5 ounces of my bourbon. Like I said, I mentioned Knob Creek. I don't know, I got a little pop out.
That's all right.
That's all right.
Now, you said that this is 100 proof, is that what you said?
Yep, 100 proof.
Okay. Now, for some of them that, like, some people that might not understand, when it's the higher proof is typically more of a, more of a bite to your alcohol, more of that kind of alcoholic punch to it?
It does, depending on how long it's aged. So
Okay.
if you don't know proof, if you ever want to know the percentage of your alcohol, all it actually is the percentage of alcohol times 2. So if it's 100 proof, it's actually 50% alcohol.
Okay, got it.
There's a cool story about they used to find out where your proof was for alcohol in old pirate days. So they would test their rum because you would strike a match on it, and if it lit, it proofed.
Really?
So it had enough alcohol in it that it wasn't contraband.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so if you're paying attention, you may notice we added a new bottle. I forgot club soda. And it's very important that you add club soda to this. Otherwise, it's really just lime and liquor. So you want to avoid that. Some people do club soda, some people choose seltzer. One question that I know I've had before is what's the difference?
Yes.
Big difference is just the mineral content. So if you put club soda directly next to like a seltzer water or something like that, they have different minerals that'll give them slightly different tastes. Club soda usually you would consider it to be a little sort of bitter.
Okay.
When you're comparing it to like a seltzer water, because a lot of seltzer waters have just the tiniest bit of sweetness that comes from just the processing that we use to make seltzer water.
Okay.
That's the only thing that really changes it. Personally, unless you're really good at getting into it, I think they're interchangeable. But that's just kind of one of those things. One of the other things I love about this drink is all you gotta do is stir it. So it's super easy to make. You don't have 101 things that you're getting dirty. It's a very easy cocktail when it comes to also drinking it. It's not meant to be bitey. It's meant to be enjoyed next to a fire. I think this cocktail does really well when it comes to what we're talking about of the snack mix. Just things that you find, things that are easy in your household.
Right.
Super interchangeable. If you don't like a lot of bourbon, pull back on the bourbon. If you don't like a lot of lime, try another citrus.
Okay.
So that's the cool thing about this drink too, is it's very versatile.
Right.
So at the end, we just add a lime wedge. That's got a nice little orange and white straw.
Yeah, right.
And that's our drink. So we're really excited. I think your snack mix is almost done, so
Yeah.
we're gonna get that going, and we'll be right back. And we're back, Chef. This looks great. So tell us about what we should be tasting, and then we can kind of do a little tasting of both of them.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, the first thing that I did want to mention is after this comes out of the oven, you want to let it sit for, as long as you're willing to wait. But I would say at least a minimum of at least like about 15 minutes, because obviously it does come out of the oven. It is very hot. But really, what we're looking for now is we're gonna have, it's supposed to be kind of enjoyed as a whole. So don't necessarily sit there and pick out bits and pieces because the flavors won't really come together completely. But we should have just a nice little bit of saltiness from, like I said, our corn snacks, our pretzels. We'll get a nice, really smoky hit to it from that Worcestershire, the liquid smoke, and then that ancho chipotle. And then we'll get a slight finish of smokiness, and that'll come from our paprika. as well as that chipotle pepper. And then also it's a really, really small bit of sweetness that'll kind of help complement that maple syrup that's in there as well.
Very cool. And I know when we were talking about this earlier, like all snack mixes, they're meant to be eaten with like
Yes,
a handful.
yes, it is one of those things where you don't like, you know, you don't want to be that guy like, you know, like I was saying earlier with myself, you don't want to just pick out the one individual piece. It is something that is, you know, meant to be enjoyed by the handful, kind of, you know, as a full completed product, because you won't be able to get those flavors all together. The other thing is, you know, you'll notice if you look at it, I mean, not every piece is perfectly coated, so that kind of helps as well, as you kind of get that nice full effect of all those flavors coming together.
Very cool. All right, well, I'm gonna get a quick piece of this. I want to try it with our cocktail, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ooh. All right.
Yep.
I gives you that little bit of sweetness that you're talking about. Also, I got a little bit of the heat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that heat really won't hit you until almost like the back of your throat.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll kind of just come through to the end there.
Yeah, for sure. So, cocktail, like I said, autumn Ricky, really good. It's got a nice sweetness to it because of that maple bourbon. So give it a try.
Right, yeah. Oh yeah, that's great.
Think so? All right.
Yeah.
Anytime
definitely.
I can make a cocktail for you that you actually enjoy, I'm all there for it.
Especially with the bourbon. And bourbon is a very fine line for me, but it's super bright. I really love that. I think the lime really comes through, and that syrup really just gives it's a nice, different kind of sweetness.
Yeah, because you could use simple syrup, which I use simple syrup for a lot of my cocktails,
Right.
but using the maple syrup just provides it this roundness that I think is great, especially for autumn and winter cocktails.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you get almost like an earthiness in there rather than
Yep.
just straight sweetness.
Yep,
it's really nice.
All right, well, Chef, thanks so much for all today. Thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, try these out at home. Hope you have a great holidays, and you can share this with the ones you love. Thank you.
Thanks.